Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Science and Sports. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic that's changing how we think about youth development in sports: biobanding. Instead of grouping your athletes by age, what if we group them by where they are physically in their growth? That's the idea behind biobanding, and it has a big potential for making talent development more fair, effective, and long term focused. Joining me today is Ken Martel, Senior Director of Player and Coach Development at USA Hockey. Ken's been leading the way in rethinking how we identify and develop talent, and he's here to help us understand what biobanding is, why it matters, and how it's being used in hockey today. This podcast is powered by TeamBuildr Practice, your new go to tool for planning and managing hockey practices with ease. Whether you're running high tempo drills, managing multiple sheets of ice, or building out special team sessions, TeamBuildr Practice helps you stay organized and on point. With custom practice plans, built-in drill libraries, and real-time session logging, you can ditch the whiteboard and spreadsheets for good and keep your whole staff on the same page. Just for our listeners, TeamBuildr Practice is offering a 30-day free trial with the code EURO. Head to teambuildr.com/practice to start planning like a pro. I'm joined by Ken Martel from the USA Hockey program. Ken, we met in Stockholm in early mid-June, so I'm excited to see and talk to you again. How are you?
I'm great, Simon. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for joining me. We we talked a little bit beforehand, and the topic of the episode today is all around biobanding. You talked about the specific topic in the IIHF symposium in Stockholm as well. And I'm really interested in it because I was a former under 9 and under 7 coach here in Germany as well. Can you briefly introduce yourself and then maybe also already give like a brief introduction what biobanding actually is?
Yeah, sure, Simon. So, obviously, my name is Ken Martel. I've been working with USA Hockey for the last 26 years. I started as a national team coach for about 10, and then the last, I don't know, 16 or so have been doing player development and coach development work with the organization. I do head up a lot of our research initiatives as well, and this happens to be a research topic that USA Hockey is very interested in. Um, the Swedish Ice Hockey Association and USA Hockey applied for a grant from the IIHF, and we received some funding to go and sort of explore this biobanding idea. My colleague John Lind in Sweden is doing a similar set of um, tests to see what we can find out about the topic. We've got a pretty large data set now to where we're starting to be able to figure out um, really where our players are at through that growth and maturation curve and how it's affecting our system. Biobanding is really it's looking at, instead of chronological age, the way we normally group players. What we end up doing here is uh, there's some formulas that you can use. They're called the Camus-Roach equations. They're fairly easy to use. It's looking at biological maturity on the day you sort of test. The interesting thing is 2 months down the line, everyone's changed, especially at certain times because they continue to
Mhm.
grow and change. But what it does is we're going to group players by their physical maturation and not chronological age, and it gives the players a little bit different playing experience. Um, Kids that are early physical matures, for example, tend to maybe rely on their size, strength, and power, or maybe even just coordination because they're a little bit farther along in their development as an advantage. And
Mhm.
once they go through puberty and uh, later on in their playing careers, everything sort of evens back out. And so they start to learn to rely and solve problems on the rink using some tools that they really won't have later on. And a lot of times coaches can come to them and say, hey, you know, you need to change maybe the way you play because you're not going to be able to get away with that down the road. And the player kind of looks at you and says, well, coach, this is working for me all the time right now. All I have to do because of my speed is maybe drive wide and, I beat everybody. Well,
Mhm.
this puts the player in a position where that maybe that advantage has been leveled out a bit. And now they get the chance to see that, well, maybe that's not going to work for me. So the conversation with the coach changes, and maybe the player then understands, well, okay, well, what else could I do to expand my tool set, so to speak? And conversely, the late physical mature is someone that may be a little bit behind physically, and they psychologically think they're not as good as they really will be down the road. Maybe they're just a little smaller, or a little less coordinated. Doesn't mean that they won't end up being better later. So it gives them a different look. And so we've started down this process of sort of running different events, different types of events to explore really, where our players are at. So if that's a general idea on what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Mhm. You already mentioned John Lind from the Swedish Federation.
Hmm.
You both had a awesome exchange at the end of your speech, I remember. I also wanted to ask you about that, but you already mentioned it a little bit. So what I'm now a little bit interested in is your opinion on this traditional age grouping. Does it have problems, or does it like really hold a lot of players back? Like,
Well,
because there has
yeah,
to be a reason why you are expanding into the biobanding, because there might be some issues or some lack of some different metrics, right?
yeah. So we started off by looking at our national 15-year-old camp that we have every year. And it's camp where we probably have 95% of our best 15-year-olds together from across the country. And
Hmm.
when we looked at that particular group, only one player out of 216 would you sort of classify as a late physical mature. So everybody else was either on time or an early physical mature. And that just shows us, well, wait a second, where are the late physical matures? They're not making it through our system when we start to aggregate. So, from a player selection standpoint, obviously scouts and people that are watching and evaluating the players have selected all the early one, early physical matures.
Hmm.
They've not selected those other players. So from our end, we're like, well, where are they? Right? Because just
Yeah.
because you're a little bit behind in your growth pattern doesn't mean that you have less potential to be really good. So we backed up and said, all right, well, let's go look at our regional level. So we looked at, for example, we have 12 districts in the United States. And at 15, we looked at one of those districts last year, 120 players. And when we got to that group, it was still the vast majority of the players were in that early or on time, you know, category. So what it's showing us
Hmm.
was any type of selection process where people are going to grade players and group them by what they think is ability, there's a bias towards those players that are just more physically mature at those ages. Just said, all right, well, if
Hmm.
regionally that's not the case, let's go down to the club level. So we've now taken a few clubs, and even in the club, we start to see where kids have been grouped, and now there are more late physical matures in those age categories. It's not until we get down to maybe the 12 and under level, 12 years old, where we do start to see a
Hmm.
broad band of that late physical mature still within the mix. So it seems like once they hit 13, the system starts to push those kids out. So we're still
Okay.
doing work on it, but we now have to figure out, well, how do we keep players, in the system, because just because of their growth pattern doesn't mean that they have less potential. And
Yeah.
so I think John and their group in Sweden are finding the same thing. Even though when you look at those that make it to the highest levels, it does tend to be the later physical maturing kids that are still in the group. You have to
Hmm.
be able to stay within the player pool to have a chance, right? So
Yeah.
both us and Sweden need to do a little bit more work to see, how do we keep those kids involved, um, and how does this impact scouting? That's another thing. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the experiments we have going now, and we're going to do this again next week with one of our groups, is we're going to have a group of people that scout watch their and rank the players in normal games where we just mix the players together, in their
Hmm.
age category, and then scout the players when they're in their bio bands and see if that changes what the scouts' opinions are. And
Yeah.
based on some loose evaluation last year, we think it's going to make a difference. So we'll see, but that's part of the scouting equation.
Okay. You talked a little bit about the 12-year-olds.
Hmm.
Remember correctly? How is it, or at what age can you really start with the biobanding? Can you do it with like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, or is it like the test, the evaluation not
Yeah,
100% accurate?
it's a little less accurate younger. The overall Camus-Roach equations, um, 94% accurate for male athletes, and
Hmm.
I believe 96 for female athletes. And
Hmm.
that's another thing that we're doing now is we're starting in at looking at our girls population and trying to figure out,
Hmm.
well, who's where in our system, and what, again, where are the late physical matures, and how do we keep them around and keep them involved?
Okay. Um, you mentioned also you did it on regional level and then on club
Hmm.
level. How is
Hmm.
it possible for you as a like federation or like the USA hockey team to really break it down also for the Swedes too, but how is it,
Hmm.
how can you make it that you can really break it down to the club level so they also follow this plan and they see, okay, it makes sense what's on paper, and follow it like in an actual like season, like in
Yeah.
training camp during the competitive season.
Yeah. So it's more of a tool. It's not a way to maybe break up the players permanently, because everything
Hmm.
continues to change. Kids through certain time frames grow and change really, really fast. So,
Yeah.
within 3 months, you would have to reshuffle the players. So
Yeah.
it's not it's an occasional option for clubs. So what
Hmm.
we've done now is we've gone to a club and we've said, all right, we looked at all of your 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14s, 15s, and 16s, and they have their teams currently. And then
Hmm.
what we would do is we would take down their measurements, throw them into the equations, and then just look at percentage of potential adult height, and then regroup according to that. And so
Hmm.
now your 12-year-olds, for example, might be playing with a few 13-year-olds. They might be, the 13s maybe with some 14s, maybe in a 15 that might be down, right? So you've
Mhm.
reshuffled the groups. And what we've done is we've practiced together within a club. And so you get that intermix of players. It changes a little bit of what the coaches think of the players too. It gives the kids a little different experience. And it's a way to break
Mhm.
up things maybe for a week during the season. For example, twice a year, this is biobanding week. And so we're going to shuffle the players, put them in
Ah, okay.
their age
Okay.
maturity categories, practice them together for the week, and then they go back with their teams. Maybe we do that
Okay.
twice a year. And that gives the players a little bit different viewpoint. It gives the coaches and the club a little bit different view on the players. But every time you do it, it's going to be the groupings are all going to be different based on where the players are at. So they still play in their
Yeah.
teams. The other thing that
Okay,
we were
that's why I
able,
was interested in. Yeah.
yeah, so the other thing that we're able to do is get clubs together and say, okay, well, this is a bio-banded weekend for games. So the players within
Mhm.
a club, you're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, we would get the club together with another club. They would bio band, and the youngest group would play against each other. The oldest group would play against each other. And then we would, again, divide up, in between. And we would have some regular
Mhm.
games. So there's a way to do this club to club. There's a way to do this internally with a club. And we just think it gives a different experience to everybody. It's about the feedback that the player gets. It's
Ja.
it's changing how maybe they feel about themselves or allowing them to figure out what they need to work on. Because we're eliminating uh, the physical advantages or disadvantages that they have. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
that a player, for example, a big player might be grouped with a small player, right? You can still have, I mean, at the NHL level, Zdeno Chara was still playing against players like, Nathan Gerbe or a Cole Caulfield kind of small player,
Ja.
right?
Ja.
Um, so you'll still have some of that, but what it is where they're at as of today in their growth pattern, right? And so it
Ja.
gives you an idea of what things are going to look like, after everything shakes out in the wash, after everyone's gone through puberty.
Do you have okay, so since how many years, first of all, have you done this research also with
Yeah.
the Swedish Federation? And do you also or do you already have some results or positive
Yeah.
success
So
stories that came out of it? This podcast is presented by Like Me, your partner for social media and online marketing from Weiden, and Praxis im Salzhaus, your contact for physiotherapy and health in Altenstadt.
yeah, so we've got this is year two of our study, but
Mhm.
we did quite a bit of work last year. Um, we're repeating a lot this year, and we're really digging
Mhm.
into having more clubs participate because that'll give
Ja.
us a better view on our population. But both the Swedish Ice Hockey Association and USA Hockey have been doing this now on a fairly large scale. Interestingly, uh, the Swedes are taking it another step further, looking at national teams and
Okay.
taking this. I mean, this is an idea. I mean, biobanding is not new. Some sports like football, soccer have been doing this for a while with a lot of clubs, especially in the
Mhm.
elite academy type programs. But what Sweden was doing in soccer or football, uh, they were taking or have taken their normal 15-year-old national team, selected it as normal, and then they picked what they called a futures team of players that fall into that sort of late development category and made a separate national
Mhm.
team of just players that they thought were in that late pool. Well, by the
Mhm.
time those kids got to under 20, there are more players on their under 20 national team from that quote futures team than there were from the team that everybody thought, oh, these are the best players at that age.
Yeah.
So the Swedish Federation and FIHA, the Finnish Federation, are going to do the same thing in ice hockey and
Hmm.
let's see what happens. So they're going to get together, select select a team each, and then have some games this coming year, and then see what happens with that group down the line. So even from a national team level, they're
Yeah.
exploring it at a lot of different levels. But we think internally that if we can study this at the club level a little bit more and show clubs the value of this, uh, it may have some impact on helping some of those late developing kids still stick in the system. And then even for the early
Yeah.
physical mature, like I said, they're self-reporting that this was an advantage, that they noticed a difference in the game. After each session that we run, we have the kids fill out a survey. It's about 40 questions, and it really
Hmm.
gets into their experience. And they'll report to us that, wow, I thought I had less time with the puck, or I thought I had more time with the puck in this particular situation, depending on whether it was early or late. Or the early physical mature saying, wow, this was way more physical than normal, right? So
Hmm.
adapting and changing the playing experience allows them to maybe learn different things. And the players are already
Yeah.
self-reporting that they see a difference. So even alone, if that's the case, then this is something maybe worth exploring because you're helping the players maybe figure out some things that are gonna help them in their development.
Yeah. Have you ever faced challenges or resistance from
Yeah,
parents, from coaches on the club levels, or even players?
yeah. So the the players know, the parents, yes. For some reason, they think we're gonna hold this against their child. Like somehow we're gonna use this information to, um, again, I'm not sure. Uh, hold their player back or not select them because maybe they're not going to be big. I don't know. But at the end of the
Hmm.
day, this is completely biological. You're going to be the height you are based on the genetics of your parents, in essence.
Yeah.
So, you know, any advantage you have in figuring out how to use the tool set that you have, like, again, like we said, you know, Zdeno Chara is still going to play against, Cole Caulfield, at that NHL level. Well, Cole needs to figure out
Hmm.
how he's going to do things if he's going to be successful against someone that big, or that player that
Yeah.
large is going to need to figure out how they have to play to be successful, right? What are the
Hmm.
challenges, right? And so this is just giving the players information. And look, a couple months down the line, everything changes anyway. This is just a
Yeah.
snapshot in time on where a player is. Like we've had kids, um, like I'd mentioned earlier, I'm heading over to one of our district regional camps, that's going on here in Colorado Springs today. And a few years back, we took a picture of players at the same age. They were all born within the same month, and one was quite
Hmm.
large, one was sort of average, and one was tiny. And they're 14, all within the same birth month. Yet 3 years down the road, that player that was really small ended up being bigger than all of them. It's just
Hmm.
capturing them this snapshot in time. And if we can help a player
Yeah.
start to figure out, how they can be successful. But the parents occasionally have thought, oh, this is somehow going to come back and hurt my child. Now, we also have a lot of parents, once they understand what we're actually doing, because we anonymize the data. So once it's collected, we eliminate the players' names. We eliminate, and it's just, player A, B, C, D, E, right? At this
Yeah.
position, etc. So in our records, we're not looking at individuals. We're looking at populations here. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we help a population be better? Because even
Yeah.
I mean, this is something to consider, because when you look at a test that is, say, 94% accurate, well, on a group scale, that's pretty good. We can tell that, yep,
Yeah.
we're going to be pretty accurate when we're looking at this group of players. But on an individual case, you can be way off. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to be cautious from an individual standpoint on overestimating um, how much we put into it individually. But again, trying to change the playing experience for the players, try and help them. This is just another tool, another way to look at things. But for us, when we look at population data, we're concerned saying, all right, where are the late physical matures? And are we pushing them out of
Mm-hmm.
our sport? Are they still
Yeah.
playing in clubs? Are they still? But anytime we seem to select for ability, it looks like people are deselecting that group, and they shouldn't be, because the
Yeah.
potential is same type of potential as the other group.
Mm-hmm. You said biobanding isn't something brand new. It was going on a couple of
Hmm.
years before. You already are researching that for 2 years already now.
Yep.
Where do you think will this topic go in the next 5 to 10 years? Will it ever replace the traditional age grouping system, or do you think it will just add on to it and just expand the opportunities you have to develop the players?
I think that this second point you made is where we're going to end up seeing this. We won't end up changing our normal chronological system of grouping players, because
Hmm.
a hockey season is 6 months, 7 months, whatever it is, right? And so um,
Hmm.
that if you're biobanding, you would be reshuffling the players too often, potentially at certain ages. And we want teams to be together, the social, the but this is something that a club can use on occasion to give those players a different experience, give the club a little different look at the players, right? Um, so we
Hmm.
think this is just a tool that will occasionally be used, but we would like to see it potentially adopted by all of our clubs, because now it's again trying to give good experiences from a development side of things to players that have no control over their growth pattern, right? This is something that is completely genetic, and it's not based on their effort, anything that they can do about it. So we're
Hmm.
penalizing one group of players, um, and we're overestimating how good another group is. We're also sending a false message to that older maturing group that, hey, you're successful, um, because they start to rely, like we said before, on different tools, right? More of rely on their physical
Yeah.
abilities versus maybe their game growing their game intelligence and learning to solve problems differently. So it can help
Yeah.
at both ends of the spectrum here.
You can definitely increase performance wise, I guess, with the biobanding into the player development, like you just shared. Do you think there is also a possibility in that research and that experiment that you can reduce the amount of injuries, or the, like, how bad an injury is in, like, let's say in a practice session with putting those players into those specific biobanding teams?
That's a great point. We haven't looked at that yet. What I do know internally with USA
Hmm.
Hockey, 96% of our injuries are in games, 4% are in practice.
Hmm.
And that's across the board,
Yeah.
almost the same at every category, whether it's a young kid or we're looking at teenagers or older players. Um,
Hmm.
so again, I don't know that it changes much. It's something that we should definitely look at.
Yeah, like you said, most of the injuries happen in game situations, and for the most of them, you can't even change anything because it's just a scenario that will happen in a sport like ice hockey. But I was curious if players of the same biological age are in the same practice, then there shouldn't be like a huge difference in metrics that could lead to bad injuries. But obviously, like you say, the injury rate in practice is a lot less than in games, 96% to 4%. So, but I was curious if there is any research yet and some like positive outcomes you can then adapt to into the future.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at this at a lot of levels. For example, we use uh, across our country there's different systems for using artificial intelligence, for example, to evaluate games statistically, right? From video, etc.
Hmm.
One of the companies that prevalent here in the United States, outside of the National Hockey League, with our universities and our junior programs, Sport Logic is the company that seems to have a little bit better market share, maybe at that level. And
Hmm.
so we've been using them to analyze our games statistically from an individual basis. So if
Hmm.
is there a difference statistically in what's happening for individual players in a biobanded game or a normal game? And right now we're just on the cusp of having a large enough data set to actually see if there's any changes. That, like we said before, the
Yeah.
players are self-reporting that, oh, I had more time with the puck, or yes, I was forced to make more short passes, or I was able to, whatever those statistics are. And so we're looking
Hmm.
to see, well, does that actually show up statistically in the hockey game? Do this game statistics back up what the players are saying? And right now, we actually need
Yeah.
large data sets to be able to infer some of this of the same players in
Yeah.
both normal games and in biobanded games. So we have a group that's working on that, which is pretty interesting. And I would say in
Hmm.
another 2 months we'll have the right size data set to be able to actually
I'm excited for that
figure
one.
out if there's something. We'll see if something's there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken, before I let you go off into your daily routine and your daily work, you spend a lot of time with me talking about biobending. But like I said, before I let you go, I have one more question regarding that topic. And it's also a question what popped into my mind if you have data or if it's a possibility to analyze if the dropout rate of players is decreasing because of the fact that players who are maybe not big enough yet for their age group and they don't get a lot of touches of the puck, they don't have a lot of fun in the small area games. Is that number decreasing? Is there a stat, or do you think in the next years you will find a stat that it shows that there might be a less of a dropout rate because they play with the same skilled players then in the future?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's something that we're very curious on. We don't have a large enough data set at the club level yet to be able to know.
Hmm.
We do know that there is a dropout every year within our structure across USA Hockey that we have, you know, X amount of players are in a birth year, and the next year, a percentage of them do not return. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we're looking to see, well, is it the late physical matures that are dropping off? Is it just, again, we don't know, but there may be something there. It's certainly a good research question and something that we want to try and figure out. Because if we can help players stay within the sport, they have a chance to get better, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if
for
they
sure.
quit, if they quit at 12, they're never going to be good at 18, right? So we need to
Yeah,
do some
yeah.
work to see if we can really to see what's going on within our player pool from a maturation standpoint. And
Mm-hmm.
we just don't have a large enough data set yet to make any real predictions. So, but it does make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I'm excited to see the results when they come out, what the data will show, if it's beneficial to implement a bigger biobanding session maybe, or increase the amount of games or of practice sessions with those biobanded teams. That would be everything from my side. If you have anything to add, then please feel free. I will put some information and data, some top research or some articles about biobanding in the description for anyone who's interested in learning more about it. And like I said, from my side, Ken, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
You have
Oh,
anything
my
else to add?
pleasure. Well, I know that John Lind and his research team have one paper published already or that's
Mm-hmm.
out on their half of the biobanding project. We should have a couple of
Okay.
papers out this fall. So, we're not,
Mm-hmm.
keeping the information internal. We're trying to publish this, and because we want the sport to be better, not just here in the United
Yeah.
States, but across the globe. If this is a tool that ends up being of value for everybody, wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
we really do want to see the sport grow globally, and if this can help keep more
Yeah.
kids in the game, great.
Yeah. Sounds perfect. Nothing more to add. Ken, thank you so much again for joining me. I wish you all the best in your work, and yeah, I'm excited to learn more about biobanding. Maybe see the results when they come out, and maybe I hear from you again, and we can talk if some new interesting stuff is coming out.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate the time, Simon.
Ken, take care and have a nice day.
You as well.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating or comment, and share it with someone who loves sports science. And for more content, follow me on Instagram at science_in_sports_. See you in the next episode.